Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming, even if I had to bribe you all to be here to get the wrist strap, but thanks anyway. Yeah. Well, there you go. So my name, as I said, is Steve Wemyss. I am the current CEO and Managing Director of Calibre One, and I have to say it's a bit of an honour to be that. And for those who are unfamiliar with us, just introduce a little bit about us. That Calibre One is we call ourselves a technology support organisation. That is, what we want to do is provide advice on all of technology. Everything from telephony, from data, IT support, project design, project reviews, and most importantly today, a lot of it's around security services. So we built today's Calibre One by merging together an IT organisation and a telephony-based organisation, so we could build together the two lots of quite divergent skill sets as we come. That gives us an extremely broad background of skills and technology, and that provides you as the end client with us as a true one-stop shop for pretty much any technology need, certainly in terms of understanding the technology and talking you through what might suit you. So let's just put a little bit of that in some video, because we all know we absorb through video, and let's just watch our little intro. About 5 or 6 years ago, we started to see where IT was going, and that our clients wanted not IT, they wanted technology support, and they trusted us as their technology partner, not just their IT partner. From a client perspective, it's really simple. They have a single point of contact who can talk sense to them about connecting data, computers, all the hardware and skill set they need to do that.
We work on jetties, wharves, dredging activities all around Australia and in the Pacific. We've got very lumpy revenue streams as a contractor, so we wanted to work with a partner who understands our business, understands that we need to be very flexible. We've got a lot of remote activities, so we need technology that can take all that remoteness and make it almost like they're working in the same office.
Technology is not important, it's crucial. There's a big difference. If you don't keep up with it, if you're not innovative yourself, and if you haven't got a good partner, you're going to get left behind.
We started 20 years ago, and very few of the companies we started with are still here today. And that's entirely because Calibre One chose to look at the new technology, be proactive about what was coming, and embrace it, whether it was to our advantage or not. That worked? Pretty good. Okay, so what I want to do firstly is just introduce to you what we call the 4 pillars of our business, and they're the sort of underpinning technologies. So the first one of these is what we call C1 Connected. It's all about being connected. Calibre One Managed Services, pretty traditional managed services in a lot of ways, but nowadays the definition of what's managed for you extends not only across the traditional managing of IT, but managing your security profile, managing your interfaces off with telcos and things like that. C1 Cloud is our technologies that look at what various cloud platforms are available to you, and of course our major one down the bottom is our C1 Security. So let's just start with our C1 Connected. In a modern world, being connected is a pretty fundamental concern for most of us. We get pretty paranoid when we get disconnected, and particularly in our private lives, but in our business life it's just as important. Connectivity is something that we pretty much take for granted. However, if you're starting up a business today, not being able to be connected could actually mean that venture never even gets off the ground. It's pretty basic. Calibre One's always been pretty regionally focused, so because we're based in the Northern Territory and in far North Queensland and South Australia, we've always had a lot of clientele that have had to deal with the challenges of less than perfect communications and of the problems that sheer distance imposes. Many of the clients that we have regional offices as well. So they'll have a head office in Darwin and regional offices around the country. So there's a challenge on how you then connect all those people, how you decide what technologies are actually available and what technologies are appropriate for the person, and then how you get the most out of those technologies. So Calibre One is indeed proud to partner with Telstra, who clearly have the best and most comprehensive regional footprint throughout Australia. And via that partnership, we're able to provide the telephony, the fixed, the data, the hybrid solutions, the data networks, vehicle tracking, goes on and on and on. A very large portfolio that they bring. Recently, we've also extended our partnership with AirBridge Networks, and we're now able to extend that footprint even further with dedicated point-to-point wireless coverages that bring high-performance connections to places that you just could not get it to previously. Fundamentally, those types of partnerships is what's really important to Calibre One. I'll give you a little case study. I'd like to tell you about how we're... oops, how did that get there? All right, so the Anindilyakwa Land Council. So the Land Council is a pretty progressive organisation that's committed to enabling the Anindilyakwa people to take advantage of opportunities and technology that's available today while ensuring the preservation of their language and culture. The challenge for the ALC is that they've got 22 sites, and those sites are spread across 3 separate islands. There's almost no connectivity between those, certainly not broadband. There's a few people who've got satellite connections. There's even fewer on ADSL. In 2017, when the ALC envisaged that they wanted to link together their cultural centres where they keep their traditional owner, historical and other information, and they hold and showcase that, they wanted to join all those sites together. So we did some feasibility studies, and we pretty quickly concluded that there really wasn't any infrastructure that allowed us to link those sites together. Did some initial calculations and feasibility studies, and that showed that we'd need a significant amount of money, in the order of $4.5 million, to run fibre just into one location. So when you started to look at joining 22 together, that actually meant that it was going to take a long time, it was going to cost a bucket of money, and it really didn't prove to be very flexible. So the solution eventually designed by Calibre One and Telstra allows us to use a Telstra fibre connection to the primary site and then build up and build out from that using the AirBridge wireless network that would deliver the connectivity to the other 22 sites. So then for a total of something less than $1 million, the Anindilyakwa people now have a 2 gig network across the whole 22 sites. They have comprehensive network management, and that's clearly an improvement over either no connection or an ADSL connection. The new network enables lots of things. It's an enabler. So it enables public Wi-Fi, it enables video systems, it enables them to use IoT to start to look at monitoring pumps or water or electrical equipment, as well as then access the cloud. So all of that is then connected via a Telstra fibre backbone off to the rest of the world. The next pillar, the quick one, is to look at the power of cloud and what it can do. So most of you would be aware of what cloud is now doing to our world. It's really ushered in an age of complete transformation. An era where if you're an established business and someone comes in with an aggressive, highly mobile, cloud-based platform, you get big chunks of your revenue base just carved off out of that, and it's very disruptive to our established businesses. We've got some examples. We've all heard firsthand how Uber now claims to be the largest transport company in the world. They don't own a single vehicle. Airbnb is one of the largest accommodation chains in the world and don't own a single hotel. And Amazon, biggest retailers in the world, don't own a single shop. They're all cloud-based and they all operate out of the cloud. So they're highly agile and they're extremely disruptive to the other businesses or the more traditional businesses in those markets. So while I appreciate that not everyone wants to disrupt the world, right? It's not for all of us. Cloud systems and digital transformation can be used much closer to home. You can disrupt yourself, essentially. You can challenge your established traditional thinking, and you can transform your business at a micro scale, if you like, compared with what some of these other businesses are doing. I've got a few examples here that are actually closer to home, and you will have heard of these companies clearly, but here's one. By using Microsoft Azure, Rio has managed to actually clear out and vacate 4 entire data centres. That's reduced their IT operating costs by something like 30%. If you ever get a chance to look at this, it's a really good case study of how you can seriously save some money. But not only save some money, change your whole business model. They're using IoT devices that are in trains and vehicles and trucks and drills, and that enables them to monitor in real time, collect data, and as a result of that, change their business practices and massively change in the way they work. They drive trains from a remote office. It's quite amazing. And by using Office 365, they're able to change and meet the expectations of a newer and younger generational workforce who all expect connectivity and communications in a certain way. Here's another one, Pickles Auctions, we've all heard of them. They've adopted the same sorts of technologies, Microsoft Azure, Office 365, Windows 10. They did that nationally in order to provide a new basis, and they build out on that over the next 10 years. The centralised servers are all gone that they used to have. The wide area networks that they used to have to manage are all gone. And they now rely on this cloud structure to do that. It's delivered significant redundancy, a lot of reliability improvements, together with a significant reduction in overall maintenance. And here's another example of one that's a little bit closer to home. So the Ironbark Aboriginal Corporation, it's a non-for-profit, delivers services to urban and remote communities across the Darwin and Daly regions. They have 65 staff, and only 2 of those offices are metro, and the other 9 are in regional areas. By creatively revamping the way they had their infrastructure structured, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Calibre One and Telstra were able to actually provide Ironbark with a new wide area network, some local networking, an upgraded internet connection for a lot of performance improvements, and we deployed a comprehensive Mitel communications platform. As a result of those changes, they realised a significant decrease in overall ICT spend, put all those together. We increased all the connection speeds and thus improved the experience for all their users. We improved the flexibility and the ability to scale. We greatly improved the communications and telephony experience. And importantly, we brought in a simplified management, a single point of contact, and centralised billing through their Telstra bill. Regional customers will know that cloud is not always viable, and that's just due to communications limitations in a lot of ways. One of the advantages of having both a new generation approach but a pretty old school IT capability as well is that we understand both local infrastructure and cloud. We have no vested interest either way. You know, if one doesn't suit you, then the other one probably will. The beauty of a Calibre One and a single point of contact is that understanding all those technologies, we're able to look, and when we gain an understanding of your business, we can advise about the sorts of technologies and the sorts of approaches that will truly suit you. We can do on-premise, we can do public cloud like Telstra, we can do the Microsoft Azure. And we've also recently invested fairly heavily in our own cloud infrastructure that we're putting into both Adelaide and soon in Darwin, that it improves your performance and your accessibility simply because it's closer. It's hard to go past. Okay, so the third pillar is our Calibre One security. This is something I'm actually pretty passionate about because unfortunately security, certainly up until now, has not necessarily been top of mind for all businesses. I mean, we think about it, but it's not always right up here. Users will fight even simple precautions like changing the password regularly. They constantly use simple passwords, and they use those same simple passwords over and over again. I sort of question you and ask who of you feel a little guilty about that? Who's got a simple password? Right? No? No one's willing to own up? No? Who's given the IT guy a hard time because you hate changing the password every month? Right? Yeah. Right? Get over it. Okay, I want to scare you a bit here because the implications behind a lot of this is we don't think it's a problem, or we haven't experienced the problem. All right. We hear about the massive data breaches like the ones at Facebook. And did you know that ransomware, you know, that's the nasty thing, that's running at 4,000 attacks a day, and that's through last year, 2017, and it netted cyber criminals over $1 billion, okay? And they're not all big companies that suffer from that. A lot of them are small. All right. When you're a cyber person and you're looking at a server from the other side of the world, you can't tell how big the company is that owns that server. All right. It's easy to think and be deluded to think that those attacks are not going to affect a little us in Adelaide or Darwin. Okay, let me scare you. Okay, these are some direct examples from people either in our client base or ones that I know of. I know of at least $200,000 that has been directly lost from social engineering and attacks and manipulation of people via cyber, like ransomware and other cyber attacks. We have seen, even in our client base, dozens of crypto attacks, right? They've consumed time, money, resources, and the effort required to get your data back. We've seen lots of brute force attacks, which is where people constantly just keep at your system, and the only thing keeping them out is a good username and a password. Right? So the ones who don't want to change their password, remember that. I guarantee you, if you've got a server in here, it's constantly hit. Right? And we can show you that. You look in the routers and look in the logs and you'll see that. There's very few that aren't constantly attacked every second of the day. And we've seen several businesses that have unfortunately, nearly gone under because of those sorts of things. It'd be easy to assume that all those people that got attacked actually had poor security or they had poor processes, but I can assure you that's not actually the case in most cases. Certainly a few, but not most of them. These compromises occur mainly because people in their company got tricked or manipulated in some way. It really occurs because people are the weak link in the security system. Security has to be treated as a layer. It really is very much an onion. You cannot have a fabulous router and think that that's wonderful, it's a really good firewall, I'm now safe. Oh, thank God, right? Doesn't work. You need security in depth. You need the video, you need the front door locked, you need the firewall locked, you need users constantly trained and then tested, and you need the processes and procedures. So you must have this full stack of security practices. And then you have to make sure it's maintained. I mean, some people, most of you, would have a security system on your buildings or your premises, and a lot of you would have someone come around once a night and rattle the door, right? So you probably got an alarm, you still have a door rattler. Okay, well, why do you have the door rattle? Well, usually you have a door rattler to make sure the person who was responsible for locking and setting the alarm actually did it. All right? So once again, it's people in the chain that often let you down. The scammers that are out there will build up profiles of people and companies, and they'll accumulate that for months, and then eventually they'll start to specifically target you. For example, only a couple of months ago, our own CFO, the very wonderful Darren Gore in the back corner, received an email that supposedly came from me. You've probably all seen these. That he basically on the phone went, bum, 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 yes, done, right? Easy as that. It just didn't have time, saw it on a phone, didn't really inspect it. And that's how you get sucked in. That's the start of the process. What I've got here is a reconstructed email. Now, I've put my signature blocks and titles and things on it, but the original email went to a client, and it went to an actual client, and I've reconstructed it here word for word, except for my details on the top and bottom. But the context of the email is the same. Now, you've probably all seen the usual, change the BSB and send me the money sort of accounts. This is what they're starting to come by now. So this would appear to come from someone in your own organisation, and the wording of it is such that you tend to trust that. I mean, if my CFO got that, he'd probably go, yeah, okay, Steve's spoken to him and confirmed that it's not a dodgy attack, it's actually legit. Well, that's, if you take this at face value, you might think that's the case, all right? But they're very crafty in how they're engineering these now. So this particular exploit, which which has got nothing to do with firewalls, it's got nothing to do with anti-spam system. Your malware programs are not going to filter this sort of stuff out. This resulted in a client actually transferring 120K to a wrong account, right? And only because they have cyber insurance did they not really get into a lot of trouble. 120,000 is a lot of money for a small business, right? But that's an actual example reconstructed. And you can see there that it doesn't matter what sort of security you have out in your hardware and things, that would never fix that. So adopting an awareness within your company and then making sure all your users are aware of these sorts of attacks and that they're happening is absolutely fundamental. You must have an awareness through all your staff, and you must test them regularly, and you must refresh that. I can't stress that enough. It's one of the most important things you can do. So we have our whole separate division now that looks after security services. It's a specialist division. It's not an easy thing to do, and getting accredited and getting trained in it is quite a laborious exercise. That group at the moment provides security reviews, audits, reviews, analysis. The group's headed up by Marcelo. Is Marcelo here today? No? There he is in the back corner. Marcelo Orlandi is formally accredited in all sorts of cyber security stuff, has numbers and letters after his name that surely means he's important. Marcelo's here today, so you can go and speak to him if you want. He's also at the after party, so catch him there. And he's giving some security briefings tomorrow. So if anyone wants to come to those, they're very focused security briefings, you can register on the stand, see Marcelo or Dan. Among the services that the group offers are independent reviews, and think of these in the way you would have an auditor audit your accountant's books, right? They are independent, they're done at a level that's quite independent of however your maintenance is currently done. So if you have maintenance done by one company, you get it reviewed over here, all right? You don't let the hens review their own hen house, right? So, you know, at the traditional managed server approach has been, we'll come in and audit your stuff and we'll give the current incumbent in there a hard time when you kick him out, and we'll take over the maintenance, and they use it as a tool to get maintenance. But what do you do next year? How do you get that done? Security audits need to be done at least every 6 months, and they need to be done independently. And then the action that's necessary gets done by whoever you're getting to look after your systems. All right? It's not a thing to undermine someone else. In February this year, the Australian legislation that came out mandates reporting of data breaches. Now, that doesn't sound very thrilling, but what happens when you get a breach through a crypto like that previous one, you've now got to report that. So you've got to report it to both the government and you've got to report it to everyone else involved. Now, that's pretty embarrassing at a professional level, and it can be really shattering for a business from a trust point of view. If you're having to go out to all your clients and tell them, well, we've just had this massive breach because we got compromised over here, right? So that whole piece of legislation is actually quite, you know, there's a lot involved in that. So we offer a service now where if that happens to you, then we can do that reporting, we can do the analysis and the data collection, and then fill it all out for you, basically. The other thing we do is reactive and real-time monitoring. So traditional IT tends to be very latent, very reactive, not proactive, and all the events show up in the logs. What we're trying to do here is be proactive in its monitoring. So, for example, we have systems where we know hackers are coming in from overseas on certain places. We will proactively stop those people from getting into servers, even if they haven't been observed getting into those ones yet. All right? So you monitor it, proactively update those systems. So our security group also offers the last one, which is user awareness training, which is the most important one. So do your staff know what a phishing attack is? Would they recognise one? Would you recognise one? So the security group really tries to answer those questions, provides training, regularly tests users, and when they fail, which usually you get 10 or 15% of your company will fail that sort of test, we'll actually respond to those failures and offer those people training which they have to take, and then constantly retest. So it's a pain, but it happens regularly, and it's the only way to keep it up to date. So the last pillar is our managed services division. So Traditional managed services are, I guess they're all creatures we love to hate. We all call them when something's broken. We're not happy, we vent on them, and we express our frustration because after all they caused it all. They're IT people, bloody computers. Who can do without them though, right? You have to have them. It's a pain. So why really should you use an MSP at all? Well, it turns out there are a few good reasons. First of all, it really is a reduction in business risk. You're ensuring that the knowledge of all your IT that's core to your business isn't trapped in the head of a single nerd in a dungeon somewhere, because that's often how it happens when you've got one person. Predictable monthly pricing is actually pretty important, and it's a nice thing to have. You don't have to worry about the money. You pay a certain amount and you get a service. Then you've just got to worry about getting the service. It's much better than arguing about money. You get access to a range of tools and monitoring and recording and documenting systems that you just don't get unless you can spread the costs of those things around. A good MSP should also have a very broad experience base, and if you need information and you draw on them, they're a real mine of knowledge. And one of the things we find about interacting with clients is that you often don't know what they need. And I've got a big toolbox of stuff over here of knowledge and technical things accumulated over 30 years. But I don't know what you need. And just as often, you have no idea what you want. And you don't know what's possible. And it's amazing how many times that a simple 10-minute discussion of you coming together will reveal, oh, I know how to fix that. You know, that depth of knowledge being brought over is actually quite powerful. And that's a big advantage. Have your own IT people built in, you know, especially in that mid-business market, you might have one or two. They're very hard to maintain, and they never get out. I mean, just by definition, they only look after your stuff, which is probably pretty aging, so they don't see all the new stuff, and they certainly don't have experience with it, whereas a good MSP will see it all, quite literally. At Calibre One, we believe that we tick pretty much all of those boxes, and we cover all forms of technology, so we're pretty happy with that. It's a true one-stop shop. I have trouble saying that. I want to give you a bit of a quick case study. In 2016, we were engaged by NTPHN to completely rebuild their IT infrastructure and migrate a whole bunch of legacy and data into a new application platform. So from April in that year through to July of that year, in that time we built a whole new infrastructure, which we built in Telstra CSX. We deployed a Telstra-wide area network that linked all their sites together, and then we successfully really consolidated all those servers down from 41 down to 18. We deployed a full company-wide phone system, and we moved all their mail into Office 365. It was quite a large project in quite a short amount of time. It was really good. PHN has now been supported by our Australian-based 24/7 help desk with local and remote engineers with data telemetry, monitoring, and a dedicated local account manager. So it's a case study we're pretty proud of. To quote the executive manager of NTPHN, their staff are now able to focus on our day-to-day business and plan for the future, knowing we have a strong partnership with Calibre One to support us on our journey. I just want to talk for a second about dedicated account managers. This is something that we think is a bit unique to us. It's a key component of how we manage our relationships. So our account managers are not salespeople. That's not why they're there. They're not incented on sales of product or the latest fad or gizmos, right? They're there to help and nurture the relationship. They understand, or they're tasked to understand and develop an understanding of the business at a higher level as they're able. So, and that does take a little time, but that's their task. Most importantly, they're there to make sure that the interface between us is working, that the interface into the engineers works, or the interface into the salespeople does work, and it's all about communications. They're there to keep everyone else focused on a business need. We also believe that our regional focus and the ability to be that one-stop shop is a pretty compelling argument. Hopefully not an argument, but a compelling advantage. And as a Telstra Enterprise business partner and indeed a Microsoft Gold partner, we bring the power of those relationships into the business as well. And that provides business, enterprise and government a pretty, we think it's a unique or it's a refreshing change. So what I've outlined to you is just an overview of our company. You may need some of those processes, you may need all of them, but we'd love to assist you in enhancing your business with technology. Please come and see us at our stand and have a chat. Please come to the aftermarket party, and if you haven't yet got a wrist strap, do so. Come and see us or grab one on the way out. Thank you very much.